It's June the 1st. This is Meet the Movie Press. On the show today, Jamie Foxx is Spawn. The Crow is dead. Again. And Solo, audience no-show. There's more in just a second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Meet the Movie Press.
It seems weird doing that on my own. Scott, we usually do that siren thing. Hey everybody, it's June the 1st. This is Meet the Movie Press, the first one without Jeff, who is away and won't be coming back, sadly, but is in our thoughts. He's not dead, he's fine. He's his brother's wedding, and then he's stabbed us in the back. Which is fine, you know, we're fine about that.
You're not the only one that's hurt.
I know.
You're not the only one that's hurting.
I'm trying to. It's been a difficult week.
Just keep it moving.
But there's someone else in here with me. Jesus Christ! Hello.
Hello.
Scott. I was going to say, who are you? But I obviously mentioned your name, Scott Menzel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Who are you and what do you do?
I am Scott Menzel. I am the lead entertainment journalist for We Live Entertainment. I also run the LA Online Film Critics Society.
Ah, very popular. We're the people that basically people then say, you're wrong.
Yes.
Pretty much. On the comment
Pretty much,
section.
yes. Everyone's like, screw you.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. I haven't seen the movie, but
Jackass.
You're wrong. You're a dick.
Enough. Yep.
Yeah, libtards.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
always good fun. It's always good fun. Welcome to the show. You do another show on the Popcorn Talk Network, right?
No,
within here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Black Hollywood Live.
Yep.
I have a show every Sunday
Yep.
called Black Tomatoes, which I co-host with Carla Renata.
Who I believe is also going to be appearing the show in the next couple of weeks. Okay, we have so much to get through here. Let's start with something I mentioned in the opening of the show. Jamie Foxx has been cast as Spawn in the Redux, Redo, Reboot, Reimagining. I'm not exactly sure what they're calling it right now, of a movie that I love, Spawn. A lot of people hate that movie. Jamie Foxx is going to be slipping into those shoes. A lot of reaction about this online this week. What's your take on it?
I have zero opinion on this because the first Spawn movie, I completely indifferent about it. Like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It just exists.
Right.
And I feel like Hollywood is desperately trying to keep coming up with new superhero movies, and it just was only a matter of time before this was going to be redone. In terms of Jamie Foxx being added to this movie, I don't know. I mean, when he wants to be good, he can be really good.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of movies where he has not fit the bill at all.
And the best thing I think Jamie Foxx has done in like the last 5 years is beat Shazam, which is a game show on one of the major networks in the US. For me, it was certainly a little bit of a strange choice.
Yes.
I think there are many other people that I think perhaps were either considered or could have been considered for this role, because Jamie Foxx is not sort of, I would not consider him to be an A-list actor now. Still very popular, very successful, but I wouldn't consider him to be one of the movie stars that we always talk about. He's certainly that strong, reliable B-level of actor who's kind of fallen sort of from that A level that he perhaps was 10 years ago, I think around the time of Ray.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ray, Ray was that launching point for him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you were like, oh my God, Jamie Foxx is going to become the next big thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean, it's the Oscar curse, right? There's always a lot of actors who have that.
Yeah.
I feel like for him, he's like, he went to the top, and then he just tried and tried and tried, and it just kept going like this.
That happens with so many actors. It's not just Jamie's thing. It is something that does happen to a lot of people. It's always difficult to follow up that high and kind of, you know, not sort of put yourself in a box. But certainly, he's a little bit older. I thought they would have gone with someone a little bit younger for Spawn. He's certainly not old by any stretch of the imagination. I thought they might have taken it younger and maybe have gone with something like an Origins. But Anthony, who's in the booth, was saying that you were saying that it was, it actually, Spawn is not going to be the main character in the movie. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So I was reading up on this story. I've been following it for a bit. I actually really enjoyed the Spawn movies as you know, as what they are. You know, I think they're good fun. Or it's good fun. But yeah, so pretty much he's gonna be a minor character. It's gonna be more of like a hide the shark kind of situation. I believe it's gonna be more focused on the characters of Sam and Twitch, which are embedded in the Spawn lore.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be mainly focused on them. And I think it's gonna be like chasing like they're gonna be chasing Spawn's like crime scenes, or like they're gonna see the crime scenes in the wake of Spawn and whatnot. And yeah, it's funny because actually Jamie Foxx has been gunning for this for Spawn for the past 5 years now.
He's spoken about it in interviews and stuff as well, quite a few times.
Yeah, so he's really been thirsty for this role, and he finally got it. And it kind of makes sense because it's also being produced by Blumhouse. So and since he's not that big of a actor or A-lister right now, I guess they can afford him. And since he's not going to be a minor, he's going to be a minor character, and I believe he doesn't even have that many lines or no lines at all as well. So that kind of factors into the budget.
Is there any rumor what the budget is?
No, I'm not like I don't have.
I'm assuming if it's Blumhouse, it's going to be sort of the lower end. I mean, you're going to be looking at below perhaps 25 million, maybe in the 10, maybe as up as 20 million kind of level, because obviously we know they operate really, really well, very successfully in that. It tends to be more about atmosphere and character with a lot of the Blumhouse stuff these days. It doesn't always work. I mean, not everything that Blumhouse has done has been particularly good. Truth or Dare, quite recently, is a really good example. Happy Death Day, which I really enjoyed last year, that was actually quite lightweight. It had some good thrills and good kills in it, but it was actually quite lightweight as a movie, and certainly on the talent basis. So
still both for getting sequels?
Yeah, true.
Because, I mean, the budgets are so low. They were like $5 million each.
Yeah. I mean, if you make a movie for like $5 million, you're gonna make a profit unless literally no one goes to see that movie. And a lot of these movies, as far as spending extra money on sort of promotion goes, a lot of these movies sell themselves. I mean, they're really good and really strong for things like social media activity and all sorts of really innovative editorial campaigns. And again, that's something Blumhouse is doing. Look at Halloween, the movie that's coming out later in the year. I mean, already their social media stuff and their campaign stuff is very innovative.
Well, what's interesting is Jason Blum posts about like a trailer going to come out.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone turns it into a news story.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. It was like like a 2-line tweet.
Yeah.
And every single network in Hollywood's posting about, oh my God, the Halloween trailer is dropping soon. It's like, he didn't say that. He just basically said that something's coming for Halloween. And it's like, oh, speculation.
Let's say what people are seeing in the chat. We've got a few people interacting today. Zayas Bilu saying, only person younger I might have gone with was Jesse T. Usher, Daniel Kaluuya. Daniel was someone I was thinking about, actually.
I agree.
And full disclosure, I know Daniel. So, yes, but I think he'd be great for it anyway. Trevante Rhodes, Kofi Siriboe. Not familiar with.
No, I'm not either.
Tristan McWilds, John Boyega, and the last one I particularly agree with, Winston Duke.
Yes.
I think Winston would have, and I've worked with Winston a number of times over the last sort of 18 months, and he would be superb for this, and round about the age that I would have thought would have been ideal for Spawn. He's got the really imposing physique as well, which I think Daniel doesn't have.
No.
But I think Winston would have been absolutely superb for that. I mean, the first Spawn movie, I know a lot of people don't like that movie. They deride it. I love the original Punisher movie as well with Dolph Lundgren and a lot of that. Some of those early Marvel movies early comic book movies I do generally, I really like. I mean, I've watched it again. It's not great, but I love what they did with it. It was fun and it was really nicely dark. But I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with this. But I was just a little bit surprised by Jamie Foxx. But Blumhouse, they've surprised me before. They could surprise me again.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Okay, some other major news this week. I was very surprised about this. James Marsden joining the live action and animated movie Sonic the Hedgehog. Did you see this news this week?
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
yeah. This doesn't it seem first off, doesn't it seem a little too late?
Oh, only by about 15 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to do a Looney Tunes reboot right now, right?
also
Which is also in talks, I think Space Jam.
Yeah, but also both from the sense that Sonic the Hedgehog, I don't think is an IP. Obviously, you can revive IPs all the time. Hollywood does this on a regular basis. I just don't think. I think the audience, the kids, are not into Sonic anymore, and that's not really something that's been passed down from father to son in the gaming community. They have other IPs that are that. But also James Marsden. I mean, I know he's having a renaissance at the moment with Westworld. He's being phenomenally popular in that. But as a Hollywood entity, he hasn't been a hot property.
No.
And I really rate James Marsden. I think he's been horribly mistreated by Hollywood, and he should have been given a lot more chances than he was. But if I was drawing up a list of people that I thought they would want to be in this, James Marsden is not. He wouldn't be on that list. I was very surprised about this.
It does not fit him.
And people were talking also, a number of sites were talking about Paul Rudd, being in this human. Paul Rudd, for me, would have been a better fit.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure what happened there. But thoughts on James Marsden?
I agree with you. I think, this is a guy who's been very underappreciated in Hollywood. He's been the head of a lot of, he was one of the head people in the X-Men franchise for a long period of time. And
he was Cyclops.
Yeah. And he's done some great work, and Westworld kind of like brought him back to the spotlight. But outside of that, he's just not the big thing right now.
Yeah.
And
the last successful movie that he had, I think, was Hop.
Right.
And that was 2010, 2011.
Yes, and he's coming back for Enchanted, which I think he's perfectly fitted in, and he was great in that movie. But this just seems like bad casting,
odd casting.
Yeah,
very odd. I suppose if you cast someone like James, it does keep your human costs down a bit.
Yeah,
if you're not going for someone.
But are they really worried about cost with a Sonic the Hedgehog movie? I wouldn't think the budget would be too high.
I wouldn't think the budget would be too high, but I think it's somewhere where, as it's going to be a mix of live action and animation, you really have to make sure you get that animation stuff absolutely nailed. And then the technology of sort of, mocap, perhaps, if they go that way, or, structuring a live action shoot with something. You want to invest in the technology to make it look really good, blow people away on that front. That's probably where all the big money's going to go.
Yeah.
But I was just very surprised when I saw this week. News that I was disappointed by, The Crow. Now, I love the original Crow movie.
Who doesn't?
Well, assholes.
Yeah.
They don't love the Crow movie. The Crow movie the original is amazing. Brandon Lee in that is just superb.
Yes.
There's so many things. I've rewatched that movie so many times over the years. And Jeff used to be on the show. It was like his favorite movie of all time. That remake has been through so many hands in Hollywood over the last couple of years. It looks like the project is dead again now because Jason Momoa was attached to it to star as the Crow lead character, and Corin Hardy was going to be directing it. And this was quite a way down the line. Both of them have now left that project, which means it's back in limbo. There was talk a couple of years ago of Luke Evans taking on the lead role in this. I think he would have been better for me than Jason Momoa. I think physically we've seen him sort of bulk up for the terrible Dracula Untold. He would have been a really good representation for me. But, I don't know why this has fallen apart again. Do you think audiences would buy into another Crow movie? First of all.
I think the bar set so high by the original. And like you said, the only people who don't like it are assholes.
Yeah.
And I grew up...
Or people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, or people who haven't seen it. I grew up watching that. It's a cult classic in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I feel like... I feel the same way about this as I feel about the Spawn movie. I feel like it's something that... It's a property that at one point was very, very popular. People really wanted. And I think they just keep trying to do this. And if you look at the history of The Crow and all those freaking terrible direct-to-DVD movies.
Those were a big mistake.
Yes, they were a huge mistake.
It's like those straight-to-video ones that killed the American Pie franchise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know they're trying to reboot this and they want to make it. But I feel like the the original movie didn't do that great either, and it was like a cult movie.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't a massive
maybe
hit.
if it was done from an independent standpoint, where it was a smaller budget with maybe lesser known actors, it might have the same appeal.
What we've seen,
the original.
I think that's a valid point. But I think there are several franchises that are great franchises in a similar kind of universe, where they tried to go down that route with the lower budget and sort of unknown cast. Hellraiser's a really good example of that, where again they killed that stone dead by so many. They thought cheap had to be cheap with a capital C across the board. They just didn't deliver quality in any area, and to me, that's more offensive than than having a big budget and screwing it up. Certainly as a fan. But I think also the difference between when we were talking about Spawn earlier and now The Crow, the image of Eric Draven is so iconic. I think there are people that know the imagery of Brandon Lee as that character, and they've seen the posters, they're aware of the movie, they haven't seen the movie, more so than they are Spawn, which I think is a bit more niche. It's like, people who don't know who Che Guevara is, but then they would wear Che t-shirts. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of people who've never owned a Motley Crue album. Everybody owns a Motley Crue t-shirt. It's that kind of thing. It's part of the pop culture. There are certain movies that are like that. So I really would like to see a Hollywood studio get behind it. I don't mind them taking their time, but I just wish that they would get it right so people don't keep dropping off. There's only so many times that I think a project can publicly go through hands. They go through hands behind the scenes all the time, every single day, all day long in Hollywood. People go on and off projects. But I think when it's this public, for it to continually fall apart, it just starts to damage the property. A little bit. I mean, there's a stink around it.
I think what the problem is that it just hasn't gotten in the right hands.
Yeah. But Corin would have been a really safe pair of hands for this.
Yes. And I it's a shame because I do think there's a market for this movie.
Yeah.
And I think with the right casting, right director, right writer, this has the potential of becoming another cult classic. It's just that for some reason, they haven't been able to find the right people, the right studio, whatever the case is. Yeah. And it's been disappointing. And after a while, when you start getting that bad taste in your mouth, like you're saying, I feel like you're better off leaving well enough alone. Just let it go now for a while, and then maybe revisit this in a couple of years when it's not in the spotlight as much as it's been.
I think a big part of The Crow as well was the movie was, and this is something that Mike Marchant has mentioned in the chat. The original Crow soundtrack, was such a giant piece of that movie. Yes. I mean, I think around that time, two of my favorite soundtracks that came out were that one and the soundtrack for Judgment Night. Both, which is a film that actually didn't get a theatrical release in the UK, went straight to DVD. You've seen Judgment Night,
no,
right?
I have not.
It's amazing. I should check that. I've got it at home. I'll bring it in for you. It's both amazing soundtracks, and there weren't that many soundtracks of that type that really moved past the film. People were buying the soundtrack without seeing the movie. It became such a huge part of, of sort of that zeitgeist. I think that's a really big part of this. Okay, some other comments in there as well. Blumhouse is The Crow.
Yeah.
Do you know what, Film Nerd Jamie? That is actually not the most ridiculous suggestion.
Nope.
And having already spoken about Spawn, if we are talking about doing something on a lower budget that does deliver story, character, and visually on that smaller budget, Blumhouse can do it.
Yep.
So that is not the most ridiculous thing I've actually heard.
No.
I think that would be really, really impressive. Okay, let's move on from The Crow now. We are often very skeptical about tracking on this show because sometimes it can be way off. I mean, I remember saying a couple of weeks ago, people were predicting tracking that Solo was going to be the biggest Memorial Day opening weekend for a movie of all time. 150, 170 million dollars. That did not happen.
No, it did not.
Reviews were
lukewarm.
Lukewarm
you are.
Yeah. Which is actually the stepbrother of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the movie. It was better than I was expecting. I had friends that worked on it. I I was told that it was basically going to be a shit show. It was going to be a mess of a movie. They were going to try and do what they could to save that. It was way better than I was expecting. I don't think that overcompensated for the fact that I enjoyed it, because I thought it was not going to be particularly great. I've been surprised by these standalone stories as being really nice as standalones, but also bringing in lore, canon stuff from the rest of the Star Wars stories. You can know nothing about Star Wars and watch Solo and actually enjoy it. It's quite thin. It's not as rich as some of the other Star Wars movies. It didn't have that darkness or that edge, but it was I don't like using the word, but it was a fun movie. Box office, though, last weekend, it's 103 million domestic. Now, if you compare that to, say, Rogue One, which was a completely unknown quantity in the first standalone movie. That was 155. And even The Last Jedi, which was critically generally Darth Mauled, 220 million. This is still 30% down on Rogue One, with a lot of people in the cast who are perhaps more well-known than a lot of the cast of Rogue One.
That's true.
So what do you think went wrong with this at the box office last weekend? And it was so far
I
tracking.
think initially when it came out, people were tracking it. I mean, this has been one of those movies that people have been saying for years, ever since it went into production. Why are they making this? I don't want this. And I think what happened was, what typically happens in Hollywood is there becomes this backlash about a film. And then what happens is the studios, the media, they start spinning it. And they say, no, you're all wrong. It's going to be big. And it wasn't big. And, now I've heard every single theory, like nobody wanted this movie, which a lot of people have already said. We get that. But now it's like, I've heard some crazy things like, there's no female lead character in this movie, and that's the reason why it bombed.
No.
And it's like, no, it's not. The reason why it's bombed is I'm not even going to go on the fatigue aspect of it, because I don't agree with that either.
No,
I feel that way, but the people who love these movies don't feel that way. The reason why this movie did not do well is there's a couple of reasons. The marketing wasn't that good for it. That's one of the first things. Everyone was skeptical about it after those two guys, the Lego Movie guys left. And Ron Howard stepped in. Ron Howard is a good director, but he's not fitting for this universe, I feel. And I feel like when you're marketing this towards a younger demographic, and then you have Ron Howard attached to it, I think people are not connecting with that. And they feel like he came in and he had to kind of paste together this movie. And it feels very paced together. I feel like
it did. I mean,
there's certain things where the humor is there, and then it drops off, and then some of the villains are very like generic. I mean, Woody Harrelson's character in this movie just felt like he woke up, he was like, hey, you want to be in a Star Wars movie? We'll give you a check. You just read your lines and just show up. That's how I felt about him. Now, I thought Alden did a really decent job of becoming the young Luke. Now, is it going to top Harrison Ford? Of course not, because that character is so iconic. People cannot forget that the Star Wars universe started with him.
He's a different actor. You can't have a younger version of a character, Han. And then it'll be exactly the same. There's always going to be a difference. And also, when you're younger, you are a different kind of person to who you are when you're older. So you're the start of a growth journey. So there are going to be differences, and I think general characteristics are going to change as well.
Yeah, and I mean, to go on to the female standpoint of this movie, which
I don't buy that.
But what I'm saying is that they do very much, and I don't buy it. I don't feel like that has anything to do with it. But I will say, like, Thandie Newton feels very wasted in this movie. She's there for what, maybe 20, 30 minutes max. And she's an interesting character. But she's kind of throwaway. She's kind of a throwaway character. I think for this is that there's no real fear. There's no real excitement attached to this movie. Like, you kind of don't really care where it's going, because you know where it's going and you know that there's no real risk involved.
That's always a danger I think, more so when you take Rogue One, I think, because the characters in there were new characters, mostly. They weren't characters that the average Star Wars fan knew. A casual Star Wars fan. If you're hardcore, you'd kind of know how it all fits together.
And someone said this in the chat, but unnecessary. That's the word I used in my review. I did not hate this movie.
No.
I just felt it exists, and I don't care about it.
But one thing that's different with Solo to Rogue One is the fact that when you don't have an affinity or you don't have a preconceived idea, you go into it and everything is fresh and new, and everything comes to you're building new relationships with new characters, whether it's for one movie or to then be later on built into the saga. But when you are dealing with characters like Chewbacca, Han Solo, etc., and you're already taking characters that you have an affinity, an opinion on, certain attachments to, you cannot help but bring that baggage, for want of a better word, to you with this new product. This is different. This is, blah, blah, blah. You're always going to be on the back foot with that. And if you have a particular affinity for Harrison Ford and he's, you think he's the best that's ever, if you see Alden Ehrenreich doing it, you're going to have a little bit of a problem with that. I just think the fact that people weren't excited about this movie.
No, they weren't.
And I don't even necessarily agree with the fact that it was unnecessary. I don't think any films are necessary.
And what kills me though about this is that all this talk now about what the next one should be. How about we don't focus on backstory of these characters because we just don't need it?
Yeah.
Why don't we just continue on and create? There's how many hundreds of books, comics, whatever there are about this? There's so many storylines we can go on.
Yeah.
Let's stop banking on nostalgia.
Or do something completely new.
Or do something completely. This franchise, my biggest struggle with it is that the reason why I just don't care about it that much anymore is that I just feel like it's stuck in the same place. It's like, all right, so we had The Force Awakens. Let's reinvent the wheel, put in new characters. And the new generation really connects to these characters. Me, not so much. I'm kind of indifferent towards them. They're fine. There's nothing really wrong with them, but they're not as interesting as the original characters that I grew up on.
Yeah, you've been there, you've done that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's just nothing fresh and new about these. And what they're doing with these prequels and why this is so tiresome. And like now we're like, oh, maybe we should do a Princess Leia movie or, what's Boba Fett? Like, let's do those. It's like, no, can we just move away? There's so many more characters that you can create. Like, the world is your oyster. Do something new. Try something different. Be a little risky for frickin' Christ's sake.
I mean, I don't buy. I mean, we discussed the whole thing about I didn't have a female lead. I think that's not the problem here. But also, people were saying this week, this is. I mean, I kind of buy into the fatigue, not entirely, but the whole thing. Some people were saying, Star Wars is Star Wars dead?
No,
Star Wars is not dead. This is a blip. Every single franchise has a blip. And
look at the Marvel Universe, okay? A Marvel Universe, there's like 2 or 3 great films every phase, and then there's like 1 or 2 really mediocre films.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of Marvel movies that, have, I mean, Iron Man 2, really good example.
Yeah,
Thor 2.
Exactly.
Not a great movie. And you see people when they compile their top 10 lists of Marvel movies or whatever, something's got to be in the bottom,
right?
It can't all be at the top.
No.
So I don't buy into that. And Star Wars is certainly not dead. I think this is a blip, and I think it's something of an enigma as a movie because it got so far down the track, and then so much of it had to be redone. It's not the movie that was originally on the page. Obviously, movies change in the process, but this was so completely different. It was a rehash. It's basically taking a loaf of bread and turning it into French toast. It's still bread, but it's something completely different.
Yeah. Do you think Phil and Lord Miller would have done a better job if they were like still attached to this project?
I think I don't know. I'd love to see what their cut was. I don't think we ever will. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No.
But I would have really been interested to see. Sometimes I'm for comedy movies and sometimes I'm not. I was really worried with The Last Jedi with the comedy all the way running through that. I was like, this is not going to be great for me. But do you know what? I just think that at least that was consistent, so you knew what you were getting. For me, it took me a little while to get into Solo. I thought the first 15 minutes seemed very disconnected to the rest of the movie. It didn't gel for me. A lot of the characters had to be completely recast and reshot. It was a bitzer. You know, it was a bitzer movie for me. And I think at the end of the day, considering that, I actually liked it a lot more. I really enjoyed the movie. I had, a lot of fun with it. But I don't think it's as good as it could have been. Yeah. And I don't think the audience ultimately were that interested. And I think the fact that it's come out 6 months when people are still talking about The Last Jedi, oddly. I wish they'd stop, but there you go. I just think it was a little bit too soon. I don't think if we're going to have a Star Wars movie on a regular basis, whether it's a prequel, a sequel, a spin-off, I think a year is plenty long enough. But when you keep releasing them year after year after year, and this goes for other franchises as well, you do lose that special touch. You do lose that, the uniqueness, the want for these films, because it's coming. It's like Christmas or birthdays. It's going to come.
Right.
2 years, I think, is plenty for these movies. And then if you want to have a spin-off, maybe in between there, great. But I think really 2 years is what we should have as a gap between these movies.
But don't you think they should be following like more different storylines? Like, it's just like they just keep going back.
They're
like,
lesson from Rogue One.
This is safe. This is how I feel. This is how I feel about this. Everything is like safe. They're playing it too safe.
Yeah, I think so. I think they should take the lesson from Rogue One, do new stories with new characters, or, as you say, go back and do comic books. But Star Wars is certainly not dead. When I saw people writing articles this week, I got a little bit pissy about it on Twitter. But I was just like, it's not dead. It's going to continue. And the next Star Wars movie is going to be huge. This is... And do you know what? I just think it never hurts for a studio when they have a franchise. And this is not just for Disney, but when you have a franchise or a series that is repeatedly very, very successful, breaking box office records, it never hurts for you occasionally to have that little bit of a poke in the ass where it's like, don't get cocky.
Yes.
Don't take how you do your marketing, how you do your editorial, how you do your rollout. Don't take that for granted. You have to work for every single movie. Don't just assume that this is going to be a hit.
Yes, but also
reinvent the wheel. Do something fresh and creative around all of them.
Yeah, but
do something like
I think it should also be pointed out that this is the first movie in this new universe where they actually had an issue with directors.
It is.
So whenever something like that happens, we can go back to Justice League for this too, is that there always becomes this level of there's this confusion. How much of this is them? How much of this is Howard? Just like that was how much was Sneider? How much was Whedon? And I feel like that always leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth. Whenever someone walks away from a project that's like somewhere in the middle of shooting, people always go, uh-oh, something's a little fishy, something's rotten.
Yeah.
And I think that also hurt this movie.
Yeah.
Because there was no way that people who are diehard fans of this franchise forgot about that.
Yeah.
Maybe casual moviegoers who are just like, Star Wars movie's out, I'll go see it. But these, the people who are chatting along with us, people who watch shows like this, these people know their crap. And that's why they always call us out when we don't know it.
Yep.
So that's how I feel about that.
I think that's fine. Okay, so staying with the subject of tracking, but moving away from Solo. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which opens, I think, in the UK next week, and then we get it 2 weeks later here. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is looking at the moment to track at opening around $140 million domestic. If you compare that to Jurassic World, which went on to break several records, that opened at $208 million. Obviously, adjust it for inflation, that goes up ever so slightly. I think this is low.
I think it's low too.
I think we can quite easily stick 20 to 30 on there.
I agree.
Quite easily, because the film, and going back briefly to Solo, the movie that I see people talking about this summer is Jurassic World Lost Kingdom. Ocean's 8 is picking up a lot of momentum, but that comes out here in the US next Friday. So that will have like 2 weeks difference, different kind of movie. But definitely Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is the summer blockbuster that I know most people are most psyched about. Incredibles 2 is another strong one, but as far as this kind of movie, Jurassic World is up there. Is that the feeling that you're sort of getting as well?
I feel like this is the movie that everyone's been talking about, everyone's been building up to. Jurassic Park in itself was, again, this is going back to that, 1994 when that came out. It's amazing how much of an effect that had on popular culture.
Yeah.
And it was unique. It was different. And since then, we've had a lot of monster movies. We had a lot of dinosaur movies, whatever the case may be. But then when that was being redone, that franchise, and like kind of retold, that just went apeshit. Everyone went apeshit about it. And this one, to me, looks like a step up from the last one. Now, I know there's a lot of talk on the internet like, oh, it's just going to be like The Lost World all over again. But I feel like they're going to pick up the mistakes that they made in the last one and fix them in this one. I have a very good feeling. I don't know why. I think it's the change of director.
A lot of people are super psyched about that change.
But I'm still a little cautious because I was one of those people who was sort of disappointed with Jurassic World.
Yeah. You see, I was one of the few that genuinely I loved Jurassic World.
Did you really?
Everything that I went in as far as a popcorn movie that was a Jurassic World movie or Jurassic Park movie in the franchise, I came out genuinely satisfied. There are holes I could have picked in it.
You didn't think okay, so in the original Jurassic Park movie, the kids I thought were really great. They were a great aspect of that story.
The kids were not great.
And no, that's what I was going to say. And to me, that was a really big distraction from the movie. And just the way that they came to the park and, we're just going to drop the kids off at the park. And it felt so heavy-handed.
But to me, I mean, just generally comparing Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, they're two...
I know.
I mean, I remember I was working in a movie theater when Jurassic Park came out. And when I was very lucky. We had like a screening for staff and local media people locally in my hometown on a Sunday morning.
93, yes, you're right.
And
Sorry.
I lost my shit when I saw that movie. There hadn't been a movie for years before that had made me like have sort of, the hairs on the back of my neck when I had hair stand up, and my arms, my tingling. And there have been very few films since then that have given me that kind of sensation.
Yes.
Sometimes because it's like, oh, my favorite franchise is back or whatever, or just general excitement. But I remember that like it was just such a vivid memory. It's difficult when you basically go back and you do the new Jurassic Park, which Jurassic World was. It was going back to the drawing board and restarting a franchise. It's always difficult to recapture that. And I think because it was so brilliantly and perfectly cast, the first one, Spielberg did an amazing job. It was always going to be difficult to try and replicate that with like Children for Children, Scientists for Scientists, Hero for Hero. They were always going to be up against something really hard with that. And I'm just not a massive fan of child actors in movies anyway. I'm just not a massive fan of kids. I just find they're generally quite awkward or not that engaging in movies. And you are right, that was a big flaw in it. But for everything else that it brought to the table, it was chintzy and, a little bit kitsch in places. But I really liked it. Certainly wasn't my film of the year by any stretch of the imagination. But it was a crowd pleaser. And it put bums on seats. And for a summer blockbuster, it delivered... what people wanted for that. It was never going to be fancy high art. It was never going to be Jurassic Park. You cannot recapture or recreate that spectacle. It was always going to be difficult. But this, I think, perhaps comes closer to that. This can build on, as you say, Jurassic World and bring something new, spectacular, whether that's darkness, tension, shock. I don't know what they're going to bring.
I also love that the director, because the director attached to this is someone who has taken on a lot of character-driven work.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
And I feel like and has done independent work before. And I just feel he has proven himself worthy of this franchise.
Yeah.
And I'm so psyched to see what he does with it.
Yeah.
And Chris Pratt seemed to like tone it down a little bit more. They don't have Bryce Dallas Howard running in heels, because I remember during a press tour for Pete's Dragon, she was talking about like, I will never wear heels in a movie where I have to run all the time. So I already see some like minor improvements.
She should never work with Tom Cruise then.
No, I know. No.
Just saying.
No Mission Impossible for you. But I am really psyched to see it. I'm trying to hold myself and not set the bar too high.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be disappointed, because I'm a freaking fanatic on dinosaurs and I love dinosaur movies.
Right.
And I'm hoping that this one helps wash that bad taste out of my mouth that the last one left.
I mean, I've watched Jurassic Park so many times, 25th anniversary
Right.
this year, and I know Universal Studios in Hollywood have been doing like a huge event for it. They did a special weekend a couple of weeks ago, and they're changing over the ride there. I mean, I've watched Jurassic Park so many times, and it still gives me goosebumps.
Yes.
It's still,
Oh.
it has not lost any of that magic. I've watched Jurassic World, and it doesn't have that effect on me,
No.
but it's still, still an impressive movie. A lot of people in the chat, John Harrison saying that J.A. Bayona hopefully injects proper horror into Jurassic World
I agree.
2, and the reactions seem to indicate that. Jurassic World was an awesome concept, lukewarm overall movie outside the final dinosaur fight. I can understand that. I can get on board with that. Just get bothered when Jurassic Park looks better than Jurassic World, SFX-wise. I mean, but there aren't many movies that can actually hold up that well. I mean, I was watching something. What was I watching the other day? It was a sci-fi movie, and it wasn't even that old. And I was just like, good God, this looks so horribly dated. Was it Terminator 3?
Oh, yeah.
I caught at the beginning of that, where Kristian Loken is trying to connect to the internet at the beginning of the movie, and she's doing modem sounds into a phone, and I'm like, the phone is out of date. But Jurassic World, even though the technology in that kind of looks a bit, hokey, it doesn't affect anything else. You could still believe that was old computers in an old room somewhere. I think it holds up in so many ways that other movies don't.
That's the big. I think that's the big problem with studio films in general now, is that everything is a visual spectacle, right?
Yeah.
That's every movie.
Yeah.
Like every review I write, every review I write for like every Disney movie, every Warner Brothers movie that's a big budget, Universal. Wow, the visuals are breathtaking in this. Wow, it's better than the last one. And then, like, when you go back and watch it in about 5 to 10 years, you're going to be like, boy, these visuals were shitty.
Yeah.
Because they just don't hold up.
When you try to be so current, you can date yourself. So, a really good example of this, I saw Hotel Artemis this week.
Yes.
And that is a movie that not only manages to have a classic Gothic and 1970s vibe and feel to it, visually and sort of hourly with the soundtrack, and yet it's set in the future and still has that element of believable futurism.
Yes.
So that is ageless. You've almost future-proofed that movie, and you've also kept it rooted in something that is 40 years ago, which is very, very rare, and many movies in Hollywood fail to do that in a very spectacular way. They're all beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop. I mean, if you've seen Sandra Bullock's The Net in the last 10 years, good God, that looks terrible. So there's a certain skill to this. Not everybody can do it. I've actually stopped watching Jurassic World Lost Kingdom trailers now, because I want to make sure that I, wherever possible, go in with that element of shock and awe, because that is 60% of these movies. Possibly more.
100%.
Possibly more.
I've been trying to step back away from them too. Unfortunately, I run a website, so I actually have to post a trailer, and then I'm kind of like, I should watch this.
Yeah.
And write a little something.
But it can kind of crush it.
It does. It does. It sets the expectations. They always show like some of the best parts of the movie, and you're just kind of like, and then some of them just give away the entire movie, which has been happening more frequently than needs to be going on right now.
Let's rattle through a few other things I want to talk about. There's some casting news on Netflix's movie The King. We already knew that Timothée Chalamet and Joel Edgerton were going to be in the cast. This week they added, among others, Ben Mendelsohn and Robert Pattinson. I have interviewed Robert many times over the years. He is someone who is really becoming more interesting to me as an actor as his career progresses. I don't know if you've seen The Rover, the movie he did with Guy Pearce a couple of years ago. Phenomenal performance.
Did you see Damsel yet?
I haven't seen Damsel.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I just everything I see him in now as his career progresses he just continues to. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio, where he stopped being the pretty boy, the face. He's being hired for the way that he looks, and he's now really becoming a really good actor. He's like someone who opens a restaurant and then goes back to chef school. He's doing superbly well, and I can see him really just blowing Hollywood away in the next couple of years. He shed that Twilight thing, but Ben Mendelsohn as well. Superb actor.
Ben Mendelsohn's
superb
amazing.
Actor. Just brilliant. So that, to me, is an amazing cast they've assembled there. Top Gun 2. has started shooting. The first still image came out this
And
week.
everyone was tweeting that yesterday. Oh my God.
We shouldn't encourage it. You know, I don't know how you feel about it. I love Top Gun.
I do too. It's so
And
great. I grew up with it, and it's the nostalgia, and I mean, it's just a fun buddy movie, and Tom Cruise is so awesome in it. I don't know how I feel about this.
I feel sad.
You feel sad?
I feel sad, Scott.
Sad panda?
Sad panda. I just don't. There are so many Tom Cruise movies that I would much rather see a sequel to than Top Gun. If it involves drones, I'm sorry. I'm not interested. It was very much a movie of its time. I don't want to see. I mean, Hollywood's doing it anyway, so fuck me. But I just don't. It's not as exciting. It's different, you know. I don't want. And also the days of Top Gun, and like Iron Eagle, and those movies were even like even before that, like Blue Thunder, where you got choppers flying into planes. The days of that kind of movie.
They feel
gone.
like they're stuck in that particular era.
Yeah,
like they're in late 80s, early 90s. They should not be attempted again. And I know everyone's really excited right now. But I think everyone's going to be very disappointed when it doesn't have the Mission Impossible effect. When this movie comes out and people are going to go like, man, Tom Cruise again. It's like, maybe it'll be a new Mission Impossible franchise. Like, no, it's not. I don't have a good gut feeling. And then everyone's going to critique the hell out of it because they're like, oh, it's not as like
it doesn't have this kind of scene or that kind of scene.
The whole theme of this show should be like, it doesn't live up to the original, because that's like kind of how I feel like with everything we're talking about. Like everything has this bar, this expectation that has been set, and it's that magic is gone. Like, let's be honest, you're not going to be able to recreate it.
We've lost that loving feeling.
Yeah.
Ooh, that loving feeling.
Yeah.
That was just it had so many moments in it that became iconic and classic, that film has just become one big like classic sushi roll.
Yes.
And I don't, I love sushi, but sometimes you have your fill, and it's like great. I just don't think we need that. But I mean, do you know what? I've said that, but I'll still go and see it, and I'll just cry.
We all are. Let's be honest. I mean, that's the thing. If you're a critic, if you're someone who's a journalist, you're going to see these movies regardless. It's whether or not audiences are going to see them. And again, there's going to be those people who are fans of the original. They're going to be the people who are first in line, but they're also going to be the ones who are going to be the most critical about this movie.
Well, Zayas Bilou has said in the chat, very active today, Zayas, never got into Top Gun in the first place, way before my time, which is another problem.
Yes.
Because people like you and I, who are around when the first movie came out, it's such a big part of our lives, there is an entire generation that's come after that now, who don't have that connection and don't have that affinity, which could be a plus and could be a minus. Because if you're not a big fan or attached to the first one, why would you want to go and see the second one? So you have to really try and do something completely different. And I'm not entirely sure that drones is what's going to put asses on seats.
Yes.
Mike Marchant saying that Top Gun 2 would be cool if they play up to the Russian collusion thing. Do you know what? I think actually Mike's got a point there, because obviously even though the first one wasn't about the Cold War, unlike so many movies in that era, this was about the personalities and the relationships between the people as much as anything. I think if they kind of did the reverse Cold War thing, I think that, and look at the sort of current political climate worldwide, I think that would actually be way more interesting. But then, do you become War Games Live? That's the problem, you know. So I like the idea, and that certainly interests me more than drones do. But I don't know. John Harrison saying, as long as Luke Hemsworth is not playing some young and up-and-coming pilot who takes over from Cruise, they'll be all right.
I agree.
Do you know what? Yeah, Zayas Bilou again saying probably going to flop like The Mummy did for Tom Cruise.
Nothing's going to flop like The Mummy did.
Mike Marchant has suggested Top Gun 2 collusion.
Yeah.
Mike says, no Kenny Loggins soundtrack. No Kenny Loggins soundtrack. You take that back, Mike. You take that back. You've got to have some Kenny Loggins in there. Come on.
You know they're going to
have.
You know they're going to put it in
Let's not have
there.
someone like redoing Danger Zone. You know, like, I don't know. I dread to think Nicki Minaj. doing her.
Don't.
That never. Oh,
Don't.
I've let the cat out of the bag. The menage out of the bag.
Yeah.
Look at some other stuff. Woody Harrelson confirming that he's going to appear in Venom and Venom 2. I didn't know there was a Venom 2. Looks like we're getting one. Woody's going to be in it.
They hope. I mean, the buzz in that movie is not good right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a comic book movie, but if that does bad numbers at the box office, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we need to talk about this for just 2 seconds.
Sure.
Tom Hardy, who, knocked it out of the park with Mad Max, but before Mad Max, really wasn't that big or bankable of an actor.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're putting him in this role and hoping that he sells a big franchise that people love again, and his mumbling, which I can't understand half the shit he says in that trailer, like most of the trailers.
He also has a ridiculous accent.
Oh my
who can
God!
understand
Yeah,
those
I know.
guys?
Two things at once.
So blah blah tea, something something royal family, something something crumpets.
Yeah, I just don't know. Everyone who I talk to about this movie is not psyched at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see sort of whether that grows or not, but I don't know. The Penguin could be the villain in Matt Reeves' Batman.
I'm down for this.
Totally down for that.
I'm down for this.
I'm more down than a thing that's very down.
Right.
That. I love the Penguin.
Then your shoes on the ground.
Yeah, I'm just insanely down. I love the Penguin is one of my favorite Batman villains anyway.
Mine too.
Obviously, having grown up with the Tim Burton movies, I thought Danny DeVito's Penguin was amazing. I would love to see what they can do with this now, and there are so many people who could do an amazing job with that. We've got so much talent out there right now. But yeah, when I saw this week, I was like, that would be awesome.
And it'd be a nice change of pace because I feel like he hasn't gotten much love lately.
Yeah,
the Penguin as a character.
Yeah, no, I agree, and he's so classic that I think that will appeal. I think there's an element of, I think a lot of the comic book movies have, well, I discussed this when Jeff was on the show. A lot of comic movies, they struggle with having really good villains,
Yes.
and that's DC and Marvel.
Both of them,
both of them are as guilty of this as ever. I think Marvel have more better villains, but they also have more movies, so their odds are.
It depends because
increase.
you go back to the original, like Tim Burton Batman.
Yeah.
With both of those had both Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito, and even Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Like those are great villains. And Nolan's movies had great villains too.
And even in the third Batman movie, which obviously Tim Burton didn't direct.
Yes.
I really enjoyed Jim Carrey as the Riddler.
He fit.
I
the
thought
bill.
he was great. Tommy Lee Jones, Two-Face, really buy into that, and certainly the fourth one we won't talk about that. Batman and Robin, I'm not very good.
Let's kick some ice.
The Penguin is still, I'm genuinely excited about that. Movie Pass, news this week that they're getting into movie production. Very interesting. They're looking to produce and distribute their own movies. Interesting stuff around the Movie Pass model. Do you think they realistically do this, or do you think that this is just an idea that's floated? There seems to be an ideas war between them and their competitors right now.
Here's the interesting thing about that. I got a press release this week. I don't remember what movie it was, but that was already on there. It was already on there. So they're already fully on board with this.
And there was a red carpet recently where Movie Pass were actually the sponsors for the movie. So they are moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're trying to create their own kind of like network or entity.
Yeah.
And I mean, they already said they're not interested in doing stuff with like Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
They're moving away from that model.
Yep.
They already are raising eyebrows with how much they're charging for their services, and they keep going back and forth whether people can see it once, they can see it 20 times, the price point, whatever. And now getting into this, I mean, it seems like someone over there has a very big grand scheme on their hands.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see if it plays out or not. Because I think we do need a new voice like this. I really do. I think we have Netflix kind of like setting the bar for streaming.
Yeah.
And then we have the studio system still in play. But this seems like it's going to be a wonky combination of both in a little bit.
And we're seeing a lot of production companies and distributors falling by the wayside in the last couple of years because there's a lot of crowded markets. I mean, even and a lot of these smaller ones are putting out movies that sometimes land and sometimes don't. Entertainment studios, they've released a number of things that
Bleecker
haven't
Street.
done. Bleecker Street.
The Orchard. I don't know.
A24 put out some movies that hit and a lot that don't. STX put a lot out.
Oh,
that
yes.
Don't get what they should do. It's a crowded market for movies, and it's certainly a crowded market for production companies. So it's an interesting idea. How successful it's going to be, I don't know. But I'm certainly going to be watching that over the next couple of months with very, very closely, because I think it's certainly an interesting idea. I don't know if it's going to work. Hollywood to make Creepy Crawlers movie. This is apparently a game.
Yes. I
was not aware of this game.
It's in the 90s.
Okay.
Late 90s.
Right. Well, I was grown up by then, so if I was playing games,
I don't know how I feel about it. It's again, haven't we learned our lesson about turning board games into movies?
The answer is no.
No. Well, I know
evidently,
but it's best question of the day. Who is this for?
Well,
who is this for?
But I asked who was the Angry Birds movie for, and that did
at least,
well.
At least that's animated, right?
Yeah.
And that kids are going to see it. Hell, even the Emoji Movie, which was total shit, that still had some box office receipts.
Yeah.
It didn't do as well as Sony hoped for.
They should do like a really highbrow live action version of Creeper Crawlies with Ian McKellen as Red's Caterpillar, or Patrick Stewart as Green Caterpillar. That would be great. X-Men become Creepy Crawlies. Do you know what? I'd buy a ticket for that, probably.
You're going to go see it?
Not a bad idea.
Like me.
But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, a lot of these ideas are thrown around. How many of them actually
They didn't announce who the director was, right?
Not yet, no. But I have screenwriters who go into meetings on a regular basis. A screenwriter friend of mine went into a meeting with Hasbro just over a year ago. And
Which, by the way, did you hear the news that the Power Ranger movie franchise is continuing with Hasbro?
Yeah.
Which I am very excited about.
Yeah, I think they could probably do something good with that. But no, this guy was literally taken into a room and was like, here are loads of games. Write stories for these. Come up with ideas for movies.
I can't wait for the Monopoly movie.
Well, there was talk of that.
I know.
There was talk of that. But, I don't know, Battleship didn't turn out too well.
No.
Alex Garland's doing the rounds at the moment because Annihilation has come out on home entertainment and saying, I can't remember who he did the interview with, but saying that there's going to be no Annihilation sequel.
Because
Not surprised by that.
Because the movie did so well in the first place, too?
Well, yeah. That was... I actually did my own interview with him for Forbes this week. And I very bluntly asked him the fact that most of his movies, whether he's written them or directed them, they don't make a lot of money. Ex Machina is probably his most successful project. And I said, how do Hollywood keep giving you money? And he's like, I don't know. My movies, more often than not, don't make money. People lose money on me, and yet they keep giving me movies to make. So I'm no surprise there's not going to be a sequel to Annihilation, and I don't think that many people are actually asking for one. So I don't think even the demand is there. Unlike, say, Dredd.
Yes,
where
Dredd,
people would love
that,
a Dredd sequel. That's not the same buzz around Annihilation.
No.
But yeah, no, it's you might want to check out the interview on Forbes. If you go to Forbes and search Simon Thompson, you'll be able to find my interview with Alex on there. A couple of things started filming this week, including Maleficent 2. I don't know if you saw these pictures online.
I enjoyed the first one a
So
lot.
did I.
It was very dark.
Yeah,
and I
darker than I was expecting.
And some of the subject matters that were in that movie were very edgy for a Disney film, and I appreciated them.
And of all the live-action Disney redos, I think that is still my favorite. I think Pete's Dragon is probably second.
Pete's Dragon probably takes that one for me.
Really?
Yeah, I love Pete's Dragon.
It's close. Maleficent was then it was Pete's Dragon. Cinderella, I didn't really buy into that one much. But we'll see what happens with the other ones. Okay, so and also John Wick 3 is due to wrap very, very soon. So they've almost finished that. That is going to be going into
that
post.
franchise is the shit.
It's so good.
It's so good. And and that second one, very rarely do we see a movie that tops the first
Very
one.
rarely.
That one was
really
awesome.
raised the bar. So we talked about James Marsden as well. Let's talk about box office. No major movies coming out this weekend, really.
Great independent movies, though.
Great independent movies, and it's a really good weekend to actually check out some stuff that's been out for a little while that you might have passed over. We'll get to those in a second. So, really, the three main releases this week are Action Point, which is looking to take about 5.5 million this weekend. Adrift, 13 million. I'm quite surprised by that estimate for the opening weekend.
I am too.
That movie is not something that I'm really seeing even advertising. I don't know what it's like outside of LA, but I'm not seeing a lot of ad space for that. And then Upgrade, which I have seen, and I'm talking to Lee Wanell about today actually for Forbes. It's 2.5 million. Do you know what? I think that can do more than 2.5 million.
What's the figures? Do you know I'm sorry if you don't have this information for American Animals.
I don't have that. That wasn't actually. I think that wasn't even going to be in top 10.
Oh, okay.
I think Upgrade is out of all of those. I think that's going to be the one that I think is going to possibly push above what the estimate is, because I know a lot of people are super psyched about that. Lee has a good track record, and he is plugging that movie. He has worked so hard to promote that film over the last couple of weeks. He's literally gone to every single corner of the US to promote that movie. So kudos to him. Have you seen any of those?
I saw pretty much all of them except for Action Point because there was no screening.
Sure. What do you think of Adrift?
Really strong performances.
Yeah.
By both Sam and Shailene. Beautifully shot. Mm-hmm. There's something missing from it. Yeah. There's an emotional push in that movie that needs to be there, and it's missing. And I don't know how to describe it, because my wife pointed this out, is that when you take that movie apart, all the pieces are perfect. Mm. But when you put it together, something's missing, and I don't know what that is.
Right.
So I still recommend it because it's a remarkable true story, and the fact that it's actually based and it follows the person's story pretty precisely, that makes it all the more interesting to me, but it's still missing the emotional edge at the end.
It looked interesting to me, but it didn't seem like a movie that I would want to take time out to go and watch it in a movie theater. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it's an independent film. Yeah, I mean, it's not an independent film because it's released by STX and it's getting a major release, but it feels like an independent film and something that you would watch at home.
Right.
It's an on-demand type movie.
So despite the scape of the fact that it's obviously set in the open seas, it's not like in order to get the maximum effect from that, you need to see it.
I mean, there's some great scenes in the ocean. Right. And I mean, when those scenes hit, I think you can only really appreciate them on the big screen.
Yeah.
And there are a few of those in the movie. And I do recommend this movie a lot. And especially if you're someone who is tired of, I mean, throughout this entire year, I feel like it's been summer movies all year so far. Like every movie that's hit has been like some big budget movie besides Quiet Place. But like, again, that Quiet Place could have came out in the summer and even done well too, because it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
But this is a nice kind of like step back where you feel like, okay, it's a personal movie where it's like two actors. It really rides on their chemistry, and I think they really own it. I think they own the movie.
Interesting. Upgrade. You like that?
Yeah. Fascinating concept.
Yeah.
The ending.
Familiar in so many ways, yet completely unique in many others.
Right.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the performances in that?
I was very surprised, actually. Really good.
Yeah.
Sort of throwbacks to some other things, but I really enjoyed the whole thing. It was campy when it needed to be. It went hard when it needed to, and I think when it needed to be calm, it was brilliantly calm. So it allowed those really sort of strong set pieces to really ramp up the action. It was a nice up and down.
I think this is going to be the surprise of the weekend.
I think so. I think it's going to take more than 2.5.
Yeah,
I can see this really opening around the 5 mark. They've done a lot of press on this movie. No, I thought it was great. I thought the soundtrack for this was phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
Really, the whole package came together, and it's also, oh my god, it's like an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, I know. That's it.
Which was just it so played in its favor. It's in and it's out, and it does what it needs to do, and it does it really nicely.
And it has
really
a fantastic ending too, by the way.
Superb ending, and there's very little sort of exposition or just filling. I mean, there's so many movies that fill time when you could take entire scenes out. And this really didn't do that. It was lean, it was sharp, it was smart, it was funny in places where it needed to be, but that never detracted away from sort of the serious elements. It's one of the strongest films I've seen for a while. It genuinely reminded me of movies like Blade Runner, The Terminator, so many sort of influences in there as well. I actually did a tweet about it last week. It's such a strong movie. It's really, really strong.
It's a nice mixture of like action, sci-fi, and even elements of horror.
Yeah.
So it really works to so many different genres, and it's simplistic, but yet still intelligent.
Yeah.
And that's rare to find something that's simple yet intelligent.
And when it shocks, it doesn't do it for shocking's sake.
No.
It really pulls it out of the bag because there's a damn good reason.
Right.
So this is what the top 5 is looking at this weekend. Solo's going to be still number 1. A lot of people just playing got out of the way of Solo because they thought it was going to go big. It just simply hasn't done that. Looking at pulling in, I've seen reports between 30 and 60 million this weekend. If it's 60, that's a very strong second weekend, and it means that word of mouth has actually brought people in, people that were on the fence. I think 30 is a little bit low. I think we can see a little bit more around
45.
that. I think 45, 50, I think is going to be more realistic. Deadpool 2 is going to be in second place with around 22.6, 22.5. Adrift is likely to come in at third with 13, which I'm surprised by.
Yeah,
I'm pretty surprised
I still
by
don't
that.
know if I buy that number.
I'm not entirely buying that. Avengers Infinity War, 11.2, and then rounding out the top 5 is going to be Book Club, 7.3. Book Club is a movie I think that actually is worth, even if it's a movie that a lot of people are kind of going to dismiss because it's older women, it's a movie that I really enjoyed. It's one of the nicest surprises that I had this year.
The other thing about that movie, again, it's like Adrift. It's a change of pace.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it.
And
so,
it's smart.
yes.
Really smart. It delivers the laughs. It delivers the drama. It's some really nice set pieces in there. I was not expecting to like Book Club as much as I did. Breaking In is still out there with Gabrielle Union. I mean, I personally, I do love a home invasion movie, and that was a bit of sort of cheesy popcorn fun for me.
Oh, you like that one?
I like that.
Oh.
I know a lot of people did not like that movie. I mean, it's a movie you can totally catch on home entertainment and not lose anything around it. I like that movie more. And I was not expecting to. That was one of the movies where, like the one I think we're both going to see tonight, they give you drinks before it. Which I believe they did at Ocean's 8 this week for a screening, which is usually not a good sign.
Wrinkle in Time, baby.
Wrinkle in Time. I took my wife to that at the Disney Studios, and I turned up and there was food, and my wife turned to me and she went, "This is going to be shit, right?" And I was like, if here in the States they put on drinks, they put on food, it's usually they want to soften the blow a little bit.
Yes.
So, but Book Club I really enjoy. But no, Breaking In I think is quite good, so it's worth checking out. Okay, a lot of chat going on in the chat room today, including when I mentioned Hellraiser earlier. Somebody likened me to Hellraiser, but without the acupuncture, which is great. John Harrison saying Upgrade looks like RoboCop. There is certainly a touch of RoboCop in there. Anthony in the control room saying that Upgrade, it's like those cult classics, the likes of Judge Dredd. Again, touches of Judge Dredd in there, very much
absolutely.
so. These are all great movies that seriously then, rather than saying it's copying those movies, it's very much inspired and infused by, but there's something about Upgrade that is completely unique. A lot of comparisons between Tom Hardy and Logan Marshall Green. Do you know what? I can guess where there's a comparison. I can guess where this come from, but I think he deserves better than that because he really does. He really does make this his own. He's not doing like I'm a 99-cent store Tom Hardy. Do you know what I mean? John Harrison saying Ocean's 8 looks terrible. I haven't seen it. I've seen some very mixed reviews. I'm going to try and squeeze that in next week.
The embargo, it always makes you worry when the embargo doesn't lift until so late.
Yeah.
Especially for a movie like that where there's so much kind of like riding on it.
Yeah.
Because the female-driven movie about a very popular franchise.
Yeah.
I'm hopefully optimistic about it. I'm hopeful.
I'm very curious to see it. I'm not sure I'm going to like it, but I do want to go and see it and formulate my own opinion rather than just dismissing it out of hand. I don't think I'm going to like it. I don't think I'm going to love it. But I certainly want to be able to go in there and be able to flesh that out with reasons why I surprise myself or reasons why I was right all along.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and squeeze that in next week. Okay, I think that'll do it for us. It's God, so much this week.
I feel like it.
So much.
Like I feel like we talked so much.
So you're Scott Menzel. Thank you for joining us,
No
Scott.
problem.
Where can we find you on Twitter and your other shows?
Sure. You can find me right here on Sunday. I am on Black Hollywood Live. I do Black Tomatoes with Carla Renata. It starts at 5 p.m. every Sunday. You can find me at The Other Scott M on Instagram as well as on Twitter. If you want to read any of my written reviews or interviews, you can visit weliveentertainment.com.
Fantastic. And I'm Simon Thompson. I'm at Showbiz Simon on Instagram and Twitter. I also have a Facebook page. This is Simon Thompson. Thanks again for being on Meet the Movie Press.
No problem.
If you liked the show, if you enjoyed the show, if you want to tell people about the show, hopefully you did. We always appreciate the feedback. Just be polite. And don't forget, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word on social media. Because you know what? If we don't have an audience, there's no point doing this. So don't cut your nose off to spite your face. Tell your friends, have some fun, watch some movies, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.